Hello, everybody. This is Tobin Arthur. I'm the CEO of AngelMD, and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Joe Rafferty and Dr. Deaton, who are involved with Vesteck and leading Vesteck. And we're excited to find out a little bit more about the company and about them. And welcome to you both. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us and sharing about the company.
I'll go ahead. My name's David Deaton. I'm a vascular surgeon by training, and have worked for about 25 years in a variety of different medical device, either as an investigator or as a chief medical officer. Vesteck is a company dedicated towards endovascular suturing. This is affixing vascular grafts to tissue in the way that we've really done it for 100 years, by suturing. It's the foundational technique of all vascular reconstruction. In the mid-2000s, I became the chief medical officer of a company called Aptus, and they were the first endovascular suture, and eventually sold to Medtronic in 2015. And I also participated in the first approved endograft. I did that called the Ancure device. All of these endovascular aneurysm devices have fixation built into them, first with stents, radial force, later with barbs. All of them now have barbs, but none of them equal a hand-sewn anastomosis. And for that reason, about 20% of people treated with endovascular aneurysm repair require reinterventions. Some of them go on to completely fail and have to be converted. And this results in a lot of cost, both financial, physical, and psychological cost. What we found with EndoAnchors in the Aptus experience was that not only did we recreate the integrity of a hand-sutured anastomosis, it was actually more than a hand-sutured anastomosis. And while it was used early on just to fix problems, we've also learned that it plays a major role in making the aneurysm sac regress. And that has an impact on long-term morbidity and mortality, something we didn't really realize before. But remaining thrombus in an aortic sac is not benign. It creates an inflammatory state that leads to cardiovascular events. And there are lots of other parallels in both preventive cardiology and even in the COVID crisis for that sort of phenomenon. So Vesteck, which I originally saw when Aptus was started back in 2004, some very innovative gentlemen, Dr. Adoga and Dr. Richard, had come up with another type of endoanchor, catheter-based endovascular suture. And I didn't hear about it until about 8 months ago when Joe Rafferty contacted me, but I recognized the design and the device because I'd seen it at a meeting in Arizona in 2004 and just didn't know what had happened to it. But the appealing thing, and the reason I basically insinuated myself into Vesteck, I'll let Joe tell that story, was I already know this works. It's a very basic concept. It's simply suturing. It's something we do in every procedure we do. And the Vesteck technology has the capability to be a little faster to use. It's a bit easier to use, and it's probably applicable to more anatomy. So with Aptus, we had to sort of reload it for each endoanchor. This has 4 endoanchors. Aptus requires an endo guide, and it's difficult to position in tortuous anatomy. Vesteck, we think, will be immune to that. So I think the goal for Vesteck is basically an endovascular suturing device, but also to create the reality that all EVAR, not just problem cases, but every case should have endo sutures applied, both for long-term integrity and also curing the aneurysm, i.e. having the sac regress. Joe, that's really all I have. I'll hand it over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Dr. Deaton. Yeah, Tobin, it's been a very interesting discovery for me over these past number of months to appreciate the awareness that if you're an aneurysm, an aortic aneurysm patient in the U.S., there's probably an 80% chance that you're going to have an endovascular graft implanted. And even further discovery was quite interesting as I scoured and did my own due diligence on the space and the technology opportunity. The journals like the Journal of Vascular Surgery are documenting that probably 50% of these grafts are implanted off-label, meaning they're arguably doomed to failure. And there needs to be as Dr. Deaton said, an augmentation to that anastomosis at the proximal graft. That 60% of these aortas continue to dilate, and when they dilate, the grafts move and they leak. And as Dr. Deaton suggested, there has to be a reintervention that may end up being an open surgical reintervention, very complex and very traumatic for the patient. So as I dug deeper into this space and deeper into this technology, I realized that that this really is a space that needs some help. Patients need the help because the long-term outlook, if they get an EVAR graft put in place, is not as good as it could be. As Dr. Deaton said, if we told the FDA that we were going to count on somewhere between 20 and 30% failure of each of these grafts over the course of this patient's lifetime, they probably wouldn't have been approved initially. So there's a little bit of an awakening relative to clinicians right now, and that is Vesteck. What's been very interesting, we have a very neat little video that we show of the nitinol suture going through a silastic tubing. And when I show that to clinicians, you know, everybody through their residency and fellowship and practice has sutured tissue. And when we show them this video of these nitinol sutures going through the silastic as they would go through the graft and the aortic adventitia, every physician smiles because it's a very familiar action and a very familiar security that can be delivered very quickly and, as Dr. Deaton said, very efficiently through a catheter. We deliver the sutures either at the time of the initial implant. As Dr. Deaton has said, this really should be the standard of care because when you're placing those grafts, no physician knows which one is going to fail. You can play the odds. Yeah, the grafts that are going into tissues that are off-label, the probability that they're going to fail and need this device is very high. But then that other 60% that are going into healthier necks, 60% of them are going to continue to dilate. So as Dr. Deaton said, this really does need, if it was your mom or dad, this really does need to be the standard of care because physicians just don't know which one's going to leak and migrate. So it's in that regard, it's been very exciting that it's compelling for patients, patient benefits. That's for sure. So
great. That's a good litmus test. If it's good if it's good for mom or dad, then it's probably the right decision. Talk a little bit about the business. So where are you? What stage are you guys? What are the milestones that you're working to achieve? You know, let's call it over the next 12 months or so.
Sure. Very quickly, we're in the process of raising $5 million in convertible debt, and the milestones will achieve, convertible debt and equity. And the milestones we'll achieve with that is we will finalize the design of the catheter. We've got prototypes that are completed. They are working prototypes, but that culture of Kaizen and constant improvement is part of our culture here. We've got two world-class engineers that have been there and done that. Ted Wolfman, our Chief Technology Officer, was the founder of Pathway, the Jetstream atherectomy device, and Kent Stalker just exited Brightwater Technologies with Dr. Bob Smouse. And so both of these folks have been entrepreneurs and been very successful. To talk to your three-cornered or your three-legged stool that you talked about earlier today. I want these gentlemen to get their eyes and hands on the catheter, freeze the design. We'll begin manufacturing. We'll then move quickly into our preclinical testing and our preclinical protocol, collecting that data for FDA, compatibility, reliability, et cetera. And then we'll move into first in man. And our anticipation is that will be completed over the course of the next 24 months. And we'll have hopefully we'll have an inflection at that point between some of the strategics. And then after that, moving into what will probably amount to as Dr. Deaton likes to say, it'll be a registry. We'll move forward and collect additional clinical data so that we've got some real talking points. So, did you want to talk to that a little bit, Doctor?
Sure. I think the Aptus device, the endo anchor portion of that company, was approved actually with a de novo 510K. So that's clear, and we would anticipate, being the regulatory pathway. And the clinical work would be largely to demonstrate the effect on aneurysm sac regression. It's important to note that the increase in fixation, at least for migration, longitudinal migration, isn't 30 or 40%. It's around 300%. So presuming, and I think this will be true, that we duplicate what Aptus achieved in terms of what any suture should achieve, that's what we would anticipate, just in a device that physicians will find easier to use. The other goal of the registry would be to demonstrate why endo anchoring and endo suturing should be used on every case, not just occasional cases, because the safety profile is exceedingly high and the benefits are large, not just not small benefits. But to change the follow-up after EVAR into something similar to after open surgery, which is an annual, just a 1-year check, and then you're sort of good to go. And to see these aneurysms regress like they do after open surgery as well. It's really sort of the missing piece of EVAR. EVAR achieved sort of 3/4 of what open surgery did, with a much less morbid and mortal initial procedure, which has always been the problem with that very big operation. And we're just completing the value story for an endovascular approach to aortic reconstruction.
You both have a lot of experience in the industry, and so the end game for a company like this ultimately is to build validation, and a larger organization that's got sales and distribution would find this compelling and add this to their portfolio in all likelihood. As you think about the companies that would have their eye on this as it progresses along, who would you include in that audience?
Yeah, we've taken a very proactive run to the fire type of approach, and we've already met with Cook. We've met with Medtronic. I mean, they built the franchise. God bless them. They had the courage to say we wanted to augment our proximal anastomosis with a device and our graft. We've spoken to Gore, to Terumo, and a number of others. Abbott. One of the conversations is maintaining a relationship like Switzerland. If you don't have a graft, you can be in on every case. So we've talked to Abbott in Boston and a number of companies like that. And so they know, and they're aware of the technology, and they're aware of the market upside. Frankly, this competing technology can really only attach the proximal cuff of the graft. We can do that, and we can do it quickly. However, we can also attach repair cuffs when that graft has already migrated. We can seal those endo leaks. We can also attach graft to graft when that replacement cuff has to go in and the original graft needs to be tacked to the new graft. We can do that. The competitive technologies can't. Additionally, we'll have a smaller delivery system that'll allow us to tack down or to suture down the iliac limbs. We can put 2 small sutures in each iliac limb so they're not moving anywhere. Subsequent to that, we'll deliver a longer TAVR or TVAR delivery system so that we can do the thoracic arch. And as we progress and we earn the right, we have a prototype that integrates these sutures and a graft to be delivered at one time. And as Dr. Deaton can maybe describe the benefits of suturing and grafting and the changes to the construction of the graft and the benefits there, he may have some insight in that regard.
Yeah, well, Aptus actually was originally founded as an endograft company that was predicated on having an endo anchor, so they didn't have to build the fixation into the device. the endograft ran into a sort of perfect storm of design and manufacturing problems that sort of crippled their initial trial, and therefore they moved forward just with the endo anchor portion of that company, but the longer term vision for endo suturing or catheter-based suturing is that it enables a lot of different types of graft designs that are impossible with what I call inherent EVAR fixation, stents and barbs. So I think that's a little, further off, but there's a very clear potential. And in my own clinical practice, I've done cases that simply wouldn't have been possible without endo anchors. Things like angling the graft at the proximal anastomosis, putting one suture here, pulling the graft down and the other one there. Something that's routine in open surgery where we have a tremendous amount of control, but it's been elusive and a minimally invasive approach. Yeah, I guess if you were to pick one word, it's control. It's controlling your outcomes, controlling your creativity in the procedure. And so that is something that as physicians, of course, we like to have, and we often don't have, is the ability to guarantee and control, what's going to happen. So when we have that opportunity, it's something we like to utilize.
Maybe let's just close on a little note reflecting on, the last couple of months have been very disruptive for a lot of businesses. How have you guys sort of weathered through the quarantines and has it slowed you down just a little bit, and are you kind of getting back at it, or just give us a little sense of how you've navigated through this?
Yeah, Tobin, I think earlier in our conversation, you hit the nail right on the head. There's an old saying in an old book about the more they afflicted us, the more we multiplied. Frankly, we have had, Dr. Deaton and I have been doing this roadshow, if you will, more times in the last, I'll say, month than we have in the past, because people in your seat are getting very proactive and utilizing the resources that we have. And frankly, we're getting an awful lot of wonderful visibility. It's the onus is on us to make sure we're succinct and our messaging is on point. And so it's made us get better at articulating the value proposition and then get the heck off. So frankly, we've raised additional funds and we may get oversubscribed. And as they say in New York, everybody should have those high-class problems. So it's been very good for us.
That's great.
Yeah, but we're sort of a socially isolated company from the get-go. We're in different places and still at an early stage, so we don't have any functions now that bring a whole bunch of people together. So it's not really an impediment. And as Joe said, doing things virtually is just made it easier and faster. So
it's amazing how much more you can get done when you don't have to jump on planes or drive for hours on end.
And how much less expensive it is as well. So.
Yeah, agree.
Well, thank you guys for spending time today. This is a really interesting company, and we'd love to be